Directions for creating your mixed media maps. Name and teacher code on the back. You will start out by placing parts of coffee filters on your paper. I am choosing to keep the straight edge kind of lined up with the straight edge of my paper, but if you want to do it different, you can. Keep in mind this will be the green or the land part of your map, and then give it a little spritz of water. You do not need to soak it, just a little spritz to get it to stay in place. Then using tempera cake paint that you've added a little bit of water to with the spray bottle, you're going to pat green paint on top of the coffee filter. You have to be gentle so that you don't end up putting a hole in the coffee filter. You're just kind of patting. You can also dip your brush in your water and then back directly to the coffee filter on your paper. This helps spread out the paint much easier by just adding water to the paint that's already on your paper. So remember, the coffee filter portion is your land or your ground of your map. Now I'm going to add yellow to the green areas to give different varieties of green in my land. Once you have painted the areas with the coffee filter, you're going to start painting your water. I would stick with the blues and purples for the water. Be very gentle when you're next to the edge where the coffee filter is because you don't want to accidentally bump it. We need to leave those coffee filters there until the paint is dry. So be nice and gentle. You can add one blue or many blues. You get to decide. Remember to add water to your brush to help that paint really flow well on your paper. I also just slightly overlapped the green that's on my paper so I didn't end up with a white space in between the filter green area and the water. Right here I'm showing you that when you have a lot of darker paint on your paper, if you just simply dip your brush in your water, you can use that water to help spread out the paint much more easily. And you're just simply going to fill it all the way in. Then locate a piece of cardboard and bring it to your space and carefully slide it underneath your project and carry it to the drying rack. Be sure not to take off the coffee filters because we want the interesting effect, but it won't happen if we remove them before the paint is dry. Before we start drawing on our official map, we're going to practice the different icons or the pictures that will be on our map. So here I'm deciding what kind of house or houses, or maybe I even want to do a castle. Think about the different shapes that are in the kinds of buildings that you might want to draw, like triangles and squares and rectangles. A lot of times it's just a combination of a lot of geometric shapes. Also practice the kind of trees you might like to use. Also thinking about the shapes, circles, rectangles, zigzags, things like that. You may also want to practice maybe bushes or waves that you add in your water or different details you might like to add in your water. It's also a good idea to practice maybe hills or mountains. Any of those details you think you might want to add, practice them first so that when you start on your final picture, you already kind of have an idea of how it's going to go. It also prevents a lot less erasing. It's much harder to erase on the painted paper. When you have decided all the different icons and details that you want to add, you're going to start doing your road first, or your path. So you'll have the choice of using black or brown in this area. Maybe you want to do a paved road, maybe you want to do a dirt road, that's fine. When you create a bridge, you're making kind of a rainbow shape, and that will be your railing, and it will make more sense when we add color here in a minute. But go ahead and add your path on your land first, and you can do as much or as little of this as you choose. Next, I'm going to go through and add a lot of those details and icons that I practiced earlier. So I added waves, I'm going to add houses in different areas. Later on, I'll add some trees and different things like that. And it's a good idea to keep your practice drawing handy so that if you forgot, you have that to look at. And then as soon as you are happy with all of your pencil lines, you will grab a Sharpie and very carefully retrace. Then you'll use a black or brown paint stick to color in your road or your path, or maybe you want to do a little bit of both, that's okay. The reason we're doing this first is it gives it an opportunity to dry. It does dry very quickly, but if you want to add any details on top of the paint stick coloring, it's best to do it first so it has the chance to dry. Take your time doing this because it is a little bit wide coloring in a small space. Then you're going to use crayons or colored pencils. I like colored pencils for this project, not because you have to sharpen them a bunch, but because they're smaller and they're nice for the small map icons. Make sure that you're pushing down relatively hard and not doing little scribbly back and forth lines. We want to press nice and hard inside of those tiny little spaces so it's very vibrant, bold coloring on top of our painting. And then lastly, after I've colored in all the little icons, I'm adding extra little fine details that really make your drawing look nice. So I'm adding blades of grass with little zigzags, and I added waves, and I'm adding with oil pastel, I'm adding white lines on my road. I did try using other materials than white oil pastel, but that seems to be the one that works the best.